Hello and welcome back to the Adventures in CRE audio series season 2. Today we are joined by Ron Rohde, so let's get started.
Welcome to the Adventures in CRE audio series. Join Michael Belasco and Spencer Burton as they pull back the curtain on everything commercial real estate and introduce you to some of the top minds in the industry. If you want to take your skills to the next level and be part of a growing community of CRE professionals across the world, this is for you.
All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in, coming back to the show here. We're really excited because we're in studio today. We've got Ron. Ron, how you doing?
Living the dream.
That's good. Yeah, we're actually in studio. Michael Belasco, Spencer Burton, co-creators of the Adventures in CRE audio series, website, and accelerator. How you guys
going?
doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
How
it's
about
good to
you?
be here.
How about
So,
you, Sam?
Dude, I'm doing good. Thank you very much for asking. Nobody ever asks anything. I appreciate you asking. No, so we're excited to be here. And I'm going to dish this over to you, Spencer, to kind of tee us off to what we're talking about and why we're so excited to be here with Ron specifically.
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, Michael and I have received numerous questions around how legal elements coincide or connect with maybe the financial analysis that's done or the deal level analysis. And we're not attorneys. So we didn't have a lot to say. And Ron and I have been friends for a while. And at a certain point in some discussion we had, we thought it'd be great if we had a section on the website where legal topics could be discussed using a lens of the analysis of a deal, right? And the best example of that would be, say, a partnership waterfall, where if you look at a model, there's a lot of nuances to how distributions could be made. And we have our models, and they have very clear assumptions that drive like what ultimately are the distributions that are made to the different partners. But those assumptions then have to be communicated in LOI and then or MOU, partnership agreements between the partners. And oftentimes that doesn't happen. And so we've had these discussions with Ron about coming and creating content for our readers that will help them bridge that gap. And so let me turn it back over to Ron. We've already introduced him on a previous episode, but so Ron, as you think about this A.CRE legal section, what do you have in store for us over the next few months and years?
Yeah, definitely. I think that topic and that conversation is really the genesis of how we, got to build this section and what's going to be most useful. Regarding the translation, it's almost an interpretation to another language, right? A legal contract is not how most people describe a relationship between two parties. It's too formal. It's very detailed and references other paragraphs, and that's not how people talk. So what I see, being very useful is taking the models and that have your standard assumptions and then putting that into quote boilerplate that the users and the readers could take to their attorney, or they could incorporate into their agreement and say, this is actually what we're talking about. And it's just another way to present the information, in a way that's legally binding and is also very clear for that legal review. So it can be enforced and people could ink deals on that basis.
Yeah.
So-
No, I was just going to say, a good example of this conundrum, if you will, is about a year and a half ago, I got an email from a boutique developer who had reached the point where distributions were beginning to be made, and this boutique developer had as a partner an institutional limited partner, and this boutique developer used S2E4 in their model to calculate their returns. And when they got word of their first distribution, it didn't quite match up. It was slightly less than they had anticipated. And so they went to their LP and they said, what's going on here? And it turns out the methodology, and it was actually in the documents, this particular individual just hadn't fully understood what he was getting himself into. But it turns out that distributions were to be made using an IRR times 12 methodology. And as a result, he earns slightly less in distributions. And so as we've been talking about this section, just the ability to download, say, LOIs and understand how that LOI connects maybe to Michael's JV waterfall model that he's built. And this is the language that might be used for this sort of waterfall. And then, as you said, those individuals could download that document and then take it to their attorney and go from there, or at least learn, right? And so, besides these downloads, what other type of content do you expect to put up in the section?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great scenario. And again, in addition to linking or attaching that model and pasting it, that still doesn't cover all of the legal scenarios. What happens when there's an error in your formula? The law wouldn't allow for that. So in terms of other content, we're going to be looking through the whole deal flow process, from LOI, identifying a project, going under contract, drafting, negotiating, right? The PSA is an incredibly fluid document. There are no standard terms. No matter what people want to say, everything is negotiable. And sometimes, in a tight market, that's necessary. You need some creative clauses that get both buyer and seller the outcome that they want. And so once you start changing those things, you very quickly exceed the capabilities of sometimes people who are drafting the first draft. So in addition to that, PSA, we're going to go through a little bit of due diligence, how we review leases, particularly if you're looking at, say, a multifamily with a lot of leases. How do you process that, and what are the common issues that pop up that maybe I would bubble up to my client and say, hey, this is an issue. Here's a possible solution if you still want to go forward. I won't really opine on a discount, but maybe you renegotiate for a discount, say this is not what we expected. We're still in feasibility, we could terminate. But those are the kinds of things that, could kill a deal. And I'd like to give insight into your readers and viewers what can go wrong from my side, because from an analyst, you've underwritten the deal, you've brought it in, you're under contract, and then the next thing you know, they say the deal's dead, killed, and you say why? Legal, and what does that mean? And there's a whole range of possible issues, ranging from deed issues or easements or zoning and use, and then leases and estoppel certificates and tenant creditworthiness. There's all these factors that they're built in. They might be an out for the buyer, but to the developer or to the buyer, maybe they don't have a lot of transparency into that. And the more that you, as a stakeholder in the commercial real estate world, understands about legal, you will have a better nuance of deciding when to break those rules and when to not listen to the advice of your attorney. And that's what really makes you, I think, a more well-rounded and more powerful investor, is that you know what he's talking about and you know when to disregard and close anyway, or to take that advice and say, okay, we're going to walk. That's really powerful.
Yeah. So, I'm personally very excited. So it sounds like, what you're going to be contributing to the site is insights, tips, advice, and not only that, downloadable templates that can give you sort of a base, where to start. And then here are some nuances and things that you could take away, which is, it's sort of, the model that Spencer and I have built on the financial modeling side, to where, I think, this is exactly as Spencer said, it's a gap where you're going to come in and fill in. And, it's the same model where all your expertise and all the insights you've experienced of this, and even stuff you've maybe learned from others, just being able to contribute and share this knowledge, which I think is the most valuable, kind of opens that door of community and sharing. And so, I'm really personally very excited that you have brought all this to the table, to the website. So it's going to
a lot of people don't necessarily take this aspect into thought, like into the thought process, maybe really far down the road. Right? Because it's all about, when people are coming to the Adventures in CRE website, it's about modeling. But if you want to be a full stack, contributor to whatever it is you're doing, whether that's by, on your own or you're working for a company, understanding and having the context of what could happen, right? And how to not only what could happen, and then what to do when those things happen.
That's right. How you react to legal issues, because when you're doing enough deals, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. You're going to have these issues come up, particularly in urban developments with a lot of cross. So I think understanding where the lawyer's coming from, what their incentives are, what their motivation is, being able to ask the right questions ahead of time will find like that productive relationship with the lawyer that's on your team. Is going to give you good advice. That's what I want to provide, and especially for those types of deals that have hair on it. You're going to be working very closely with your lawyer, and it'll be really a great use.
So how important? So we could almost call it seeing a deal through your eyes, right? And in fact, let me just take 2 steps back here, because on the other episode, and if you're listening to this and you haven't heard that episode yet, go into whatever platform you're listening to this on and find Ron Rohde's other interview, because we talked about seeing deals not only through your eyes, but making deals happen, right? So a lot of people see their deals through their own eyes. But in this case, will we be able to, through the content you create, really see deals through your eyes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of the framework or the style of my presentation will be, posts that walk me through what stage of the deal am I in, when does a client come to me, and then what am I looking for? Because again, I have a different viewpoint, and if you're coming to me post contract, pre closing, that's very different than somebody coming to me prior to putting any paper out or submitting any offer.
So I'm guessing there is, in the minds of some of the listeners right now, they're thinking, okay, why would Ron want to do this? Like, what is motivating you to? Because if you know anything about the Adventures in the CRE website, it's an open book. Like, there's a lot of content there that is, I mean, it is really good content, and it's free. It's there for people to have. So in that, in that vein, you've kind of said, hey, I like that. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they've done with the A.CRE is really useful as in terms of educating, and as well as just helping the next generation or the current generation to get up to speed. I maybe will say it's self-interested, because if I can educate my clients before they come to me, it's going to make both of our lives easier. I love a well-informed client that comes to me, understands that the lawyer, he's a tool. He's one part of the process, and the owner or the developer, they're the ones calling the shots. But to understand what the capabilities and what we can and can't do as a lawyer is really useful. It's gonna save frustration on the client's time. It's gonna save money, and overall, it's going to help you close more deals that other people may not have the patience for.
Right. So I'm going to actually now turn this over to Michael and Spencer. One of the things that I know, and I think all the listeners appreciate, the readers appreciate about what you guys have done with A.CRE, is you really care about just giving, and to the extent that you're a little maybe protective of who participates in the giving, only because a lot of people give and expecting to get, and that is like totally in contrast to what you guys are about. Okay. So I want to maybe go back in time just a little bit. Tell me, so why did you decide to, invite Ron in, and what's the genesis and the evolution of of this section of the website?
As Michael and I think about new content to add to the website, there's, if it's a pyramid, all right, and the top is what drives everything else. That top is, we always ask ourselves, does this add value to our A.CRE reader? And over the years we've become very familiar with who it is that comes to adventuresincre.com, and they come because we just like to share what we know. We enjoy it. We believe in the law of reciprocity, and so we recognize that it'll come back to us in a positive way. But it's more about as we add value to our readers, we help them, and therefore, our careers will be better as a result of it, however that means. And so, as we looked at this A.CRE legal section, it's like any other decision. We saw that there was a need for it just based on the communication.
Are
we
people
had.
reaching out and
Oh
asking?
yeah, sure.
In our own personal, in our own careers, when we're looking for stuff, even when we're working in institutional shops, I find myself looking things up on the internet and looking for the best resource to go and find that,
and not finding it,
and
or
not well. You may find it. Is it reliable? Is it not? Maybe you don't find it. And back to the foundational, I guess, principle around Adventures in CRE, and sort of where it's morphed to is we are trying to create a resource, which we keep referring to, and I always say this ecosystem of just value add to people in the career aspect. We don't so much focus on what's hot in the market, what are the trends. That's not our angle. Our angle is value add to the end user, who are the people who, even just like we've said this many times, the interactions, the relationships we built through this has been more than enough pay. It's more than anything we've ever realized. And
sure.
What we think could grow this tremendously, we've talked about a lot, is this legal aspect. But Spencer and I are not those people. We're not qualified. And so
do we need to do some kind of disclaimer right now before?
Well,
This is not legal advice. I am a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But and I think we've had an idea about this for a long time, and right, like, why Ron? Like, who is the right person? And Ron he didn't show up one day and it was like, yeah, he's the guy. We got to know him. Spencer interacts with him a lot more than I have, but I've gotten to know Ron over it's been a couple of years now.
Yeah,
right?
a couple of years.
And just the kind of person he is and the kind of personality that he is was just very sort of symbiotic to kind of what we have going on here. And, for us, like you said, we're very guarded with how we disseminate information that we don't have that others might want to contribute to the site, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, if you're coming here because, you have a product and you want to sell the latest, thing to value real estate, yeah. It's very rare that Spencer and I will entertain that. But, if you're coming here because you have a passion for what you're doing and it's totally accretive to the end user and the value add, and me as a total Excel geek and nerd and getting into the weeds of financial modeling, I found myself so many times looking up legal resources. And so the personality behind Ron, the knowledge that he has, that he's demonstrated to us over the years, I think it was just a really great sort of addition to what we're doing here.
You said something that was really interesting. Adventures in CRE, it started because Michael and I are nerds and geeks around real estate financial modeling, but a lot of it is what's of interest to us is what we share, and that content attracts other people who think or are interested in similar things, and so we want to learn more about the legal aspect. So it's almost a little selfish, right? Here we can bring Ron in, and he'll educate us. He'll be producing content that we're going to be excited to read, and
we can hold him accountable.
Right.
Ron, I used your doc.
but because the content that over the years we've created on Adventures in CRE has attracted other people like us, we know that they're going to be excited about the content because we are.
Mm-hmm. And these are the kinds of people that I love working with, day in and day out. It's like you get to choose whether you work with somebody, yes or no. And we're fortunate to have that luxury. Choosing who you work with is incredible. So for me to give you advice and answer your questions, it's enjoyable for me because it's somebody that's curious, somebody that respects my knowledge and experience and opinion, and then wants to integrate that. And there's nothing better than I get to see a client, see their dream or their vision come to fruition, and then for me to say I had a piece in that. I helped do the legal structure. I helped do that construction contract, and now it's built, and I was a key, a part of that. It's very satisfying to be able to participate in those people, projects.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited for for all of that's coming in 2020. We're excited to have you. Any parting words here, Michael or Spencer?
No, this is going to be an exciting year, and by the way, this is not like a 6-month
Right.
deal. I mean, at least Michael and I's hope is that Ron will be around for the years to come, answering people's questions and creating great content that adds value to their careers.
Sounds good. You guys, thank you so much. Hopefully you have enjoyed this episode of the audio series, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Adventures in CRE audio series. For show notes and additional resources, head over to www.adventuresincre.com/audio series. Would you like to learn real estate financial modeling in a matter of weeks and do it with zero guesswork? If so, the A.CRE Accelerator is for you. The Accelerator is a step-by-step, case-based program designed to teach you exactly what you need to know and in the order you need to know it, so you can gain both the knowledge and experience to take your career to the next level. To see if the Accelerator is right for you, go to www.adventuresincre.com/accelerator.